What's good, everyone? Infamous Legacy here, back with another Marvel's Avengers build video, and I know you guys have been waiting on this one for a very long time now, but now it's time to show and share with you my ultimate overpowered Hawkeye damage dealing build. You've seen the clips in the beginning of the video on how OP it is, but now it's time to share with you how effective this build video is, and I'll also break down where to get the gear, what gear I use, the skill tree, the champion system, the stats I have, and a small demonstration of what attacks to use with Hawkeye when you're running all contents of the game. So let's get it started. Let's go ahead and go to the war table. Okay everyone, we're at the war table right now. Before I show you where to get the gear I have, let's quickly go into the stats real quick and show you what stats I have. So you can see what my build right here, it is a mixture of heroic, range, and some defense. With the heroic rating, that more caters towards the gear that consists of proficiency and valor. Proficiency and valor, if you look at on the right hand of the screen right now, you can see that consists of critical chance and critical damage. So those two things really help, you know, with this build in dealing a lot damage than your typical just precision based build. So with precision, that's more catered towards your range rating. You guys can see on the right hand side that my precision right there is currently 152, which equals up to 1,391. Ideally, when you're looking for gear pieces, you definitely want to make sure they have precision and valor. And with defense as well, you want to make sure some of those pieces, like your heroic piece and your defensive piece, or maybe your melee piece, has resolve, resilience, or you can go for 3 attributes, which most of the time it does come with 3. That can be precision, valor, and resolve. That's good to have right there because it will give you an all-around stat boost for your defense, range, and heroic rating. But it's always good to have a lot of defense just in case. But with this defense I have right now, it actually does get me through a lot of missions because I'm able to survive pretty often. I don't really die. I'm able to dodge a lot of enemy attacks. I'm pretty decent with Hawkeye where I'm not struggling to, you know, find cover, or where I'm getting picked up a lot after dying from my teammates. This rating right here is decent, but it definitely can use some improvement. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead into gear real quickly. Quick breakdown of the gear. I know usually when I do my build videos, this is like the longest part of the video because I'm showing you where to get it. So let's see how fast I can go through this just so I don't prolong this video and make it boring for you guys. So we'll start ahead on the artifact end. The artifact I'm using is the Sacred Nornstone of Lethal Will. This really comes pretty well with the range build I have, or my, you know, overpowered build, I would say, because when you have a damage buff active, it increases the duration by 4 seconds, and it also gives you a 6.6 increased critical chance when that damage boost is active. So this artifact is a must-have if you want to really deal a lot of damage. And when I show you my demonstration, you will see when I pop this artifact. Some people do like using, like, you know, that Tachygen artifact. That's more if you're looking for like a status effect build, but I highly recommend the Nornstone of Lethal Will. Yellow ISO 8 artifact right here, you can see it comes with valor stats. With this artifact, I actually got it from running any content in the game. You are able to get that artifact more often in vault missions when you're opening those loot boxes, but I actually got that artifact by opening like a legendary loot box in one of the villain sectors. And one of the villain sectors, I can give you a quick example real quickly. Those villain sectors consist of like Beating the Odds, Blast from the Past, Gathering of the Evil, or the Maestro one, or even the Warbot villain sector. There's a chance where you might have, you know, a chance to get the Valor artifact from there. If not, you can run drop zone missions like this. You have a chance to get it from there as well. But running all content of the game, and if you're opening loot boxes when you're running these missions, you might run into a purple ISO 8 Valor artifact. So let's go back to the second one. This one comes from the Claw raid that's located in Wakanda. I'm not going to show you where it is because you guys already know where that mission is. And at the time of this video, the Claw raid is one of the newest missions we have in the game, or the newest raid mission we have. So the Nightstorm of the Fearless is an incredible, artifact here because the Perk Breaker perk increased damage from gear perks by 200%. I've done some testing with this, and I honestly can tell you it has helped me dealing more damage than I usually do with this build. And it also helps my Heroic Assault, which is my Nightstorm arrow. So you can get this from the Claw raid. If you haven't beat the Claw raid, don't worry about it. Go with another yellow ISO 8 and replace it with this until you get the Nightstorm of the Fearless. I'm planning to get at least 2 of these with at least Valor and Precision on both, artifacts. So I would love to have this on both. Okay, so that was the artifacts. We're gonna go ahead into the Eagles kit. This is my favorite piece right here when it comes to building my, overpowered Hawkeye build. The Eagles kit, before we go into the perks, there's 2 ways to get this piece. The way I recommend, I will show you, and that is when the Red Room Takeover mission chain is active, you'll be able to get any exotics that you usually get from the last Avengers standing mission from the Red Room Takeover event mission chain. I don't have the mission chain with me right now, but once you complete that mission chain, you will get awarded exotics from the last Avengers standing mission for all of your characters. And if you don't want to wait for the mission chain, like the Red Room Takeover mission chain, to come back, you can run the last Avenger standing mission, but the only problem with this is you're gonna not have a good, drop rate, because you might complete this entire mission, which consists of like 16 floors, and you might not even get an exotic piece, or it might not even give you that heroic exotic piece for Hawkeye. So I recommend waiting for the Red Room Takeover event to really aim for that piece and look for the stats you want. The stats I highly recommend that you get would be the Precision, Valor, and Resolve. There is a piece out there which I will probably get in the future that does have 73 Precision, 73 Valor, 73 Resolve. Like I said, Resolve helps with the defensive rating. I will definitely aim for that. If you're unable to even get any of the exotic versions of the Eagles kit, I'll go back to Snowy Tundra. You can run the Evil Reborn mission and get a legendary version of it. However, the stats are not as great as the exotic, but it actually gives you that extra Nightstorm arrow. Because with this build, before I go into the skills and everything, this build, you can use 3 heroic assault abilities. So you can use Nightstorm when your heroic bar is fully charged 3 times. And the perks are incredible. So if you have a look at the perks right here, Hunter Multiplier increases the number of targets by Hunter Arrow by 3. Rampant Nightstorm, that's where you gain another Nightstorm charge. Hunter Overcharge, activating Hunter's Arrow instantly boosts the overcharge meter. Locked On is triggered when fully overcharged. That's also pretty good to have, because there are certain perks where you might come across that will do more damage if your overcharge meter is fully overcharged. But again, when you're aiming for a piece like this, definitely aim for that piece: Precision, Valor, and Resolve. I wish I had that instead of Precision and Valor only, because getting the Resolve will definitely help my defense. But like I said, it's not mandatory, but it's good enough to help you increase your defense, just in case if you have trouble, surviving. But I'm able to survive with this defensive rating, like I said, so no issues there. Moving on to the next piece, we have the Discordant Battle Armor. All these pieces you see as well before I go into this one. It does show 150. You might be getting it at 140 because you might need to still upgrade your gear. I've already upgraded my gear by using the Omega Threat Exotics to increase the power level of each piece of my gear. So you might get it at 140, but again, this piece right here, going back to it, it has Valor and Precision, which is incredible. Definitely would have loved some resolve on it as well, but like I said, the drop rates in this game is crazy, so it will take you time to get that piece you really want. But the Discordant Battle Armor is great for the Claw Raid if you haven't ran that yet, because it does, you know, reduce the damage of Vibranium attacks, and also decreases incoming damage by 5% for every status effect on the enemy attacking you. So if there's an enemy that has like 5 status effects like Cryo, Shock, Plasma, Vibranium, Sonic, it will increase the incoming damage that you get by 5%. And the most important perk I like about this is the Nightstorm Destruction. This increases the Nightstorm arrow damage, stun, and status amount by 20%. So combining this with this is incredible. So this is highly recommended. If you're able to beat the Claw Raid, aim for this piece right here. And you guys know where the Claw Raid is. I don't really need to show you that on the war table. It is located in Wakanda. If you're unable to get something like that, go for something like this, Reactive Protection Vest. Stats are Valor Proficiency. You can also get some Resolve on it too if you're lucky. This one has pretty good perks because it gives you a defensive buff. Reactive Protection, 30.3 chance taking damage grants a defensive buff. So let's say you're dodging with Hawkeye, but you suddenly get hit. There is a chance where you will get a defensive buff. And if you're critically injured, you have 65.2% of getting a defensive buff as well. With a piece like this, I was actually able to get it from, again, opening loot boxes around every mission I run within the game. But you're more often to get this piece when you're running the vault mission. So what I usually do is to aim for a piece like that. I'll run the Snowy Tundra Elite Vault. I'll open all the loot boxes. I'll back out of the mission. I won't complete the mission. I'll just back out of it, and I'll go back into it and start opening more loot boxes. That's an easy way to farm gear, and also give you a better chance of getting that, you know, defensive reactive buff piece I'm talking about. You can also get it from villain sector missions as well, but most of the time, getting it from the legendary loot boxes or the vault missions before you complete it, opening those loot boxes will definitely help getting a piece like that. So yeah, so you can get that piece or keep this piece. I highly recommend you try and beat the Claw Raid to get the Nightstorm Destruction perk, because this definitely helps with this build. A lot of people say, why don't you use the Operative Armor? Well, the Operative Armor, this build is more offensive based, and it's not like a split shot arrow kind of build. Yes, you do split shot arrow, but it doesn't have the split multiplier. But the stats I have on the Operative Armor really reduces my offensive stats, which is my heroic and range rating. So yes, this piece right here has good perks, like for defense and for you to survive a little bit more. But like I said, if you're a master with Hawkeye, and I hopefully, you know, have taught you with this video by being a master with Hawkeye, you'll be able to survive most of these missions. Okay, now going to the range piece. This range piece, I'm actually going to be posting a screenshot on the screen right now for you guys, because I don't currently have it with me right now. I am waiting for this Tachyon event to come back, where I can get this Tachyon Surge piece, because before my save data got lost, if you guys didn't know, I had this OP Tachyon Proficient buff piece where it dealt status effect damage through Tachyon Surge, and it gave me a damage buff by doing a range power attack. So that piece, you can get it from the Tachyon Rifts, or you can, like if you're looking at the screenshot right now, because I've just posted it, you can find this piece by running the Tachyon event mission. And the Tachyon event mission will come across sometime, you know, down the line, whenever, you know, the Avengers team announces that event live again. But I'll definitely aim for a piece like this that you see in the screenshot than the other pieces I'm about to show you. And again, with the range piece, make sure you go for precision and valor and proficiency if you're able to. Because again, if we're going back to stats, you guys can see Valor helps with critical damage, proficiency helps with critical chance, because critical chance will help you activate that damage buff. So besides that piece I showed you right now, that Tachyon Exotic, you can also get a legendary version of that piece by completing objectives like this from the Red Room Takeover event. So it is part of the surging set gear. So you guys can see right there. I highly recommend you get to power level 120 to 140 to make sure you get a good piece. But in my opinion, I would definitely aim to get to 140 first before you start completing these event assignments, so you can get a 140 legendary piece. And the legendary piece will give a Tachyon buff on it, so you will get the Tachyon Surge perk, and there is a chance you might run across or come across that proficient buff perk, or if you're not able to, the targeted buff is also pretty good. But the reason I recommend getting the proficient buff perk is because a lot of people are not aware of this. When you're using, for example, I have a proficient buff arrowhead right here. When you're using a range power attack, you're actually using these two abilities, Bag of Tricks and Split Shot Arrow. This is what activates your damage buff more frequent than something like this, the targeted buff. I've done a lot of testing. I know a lot of other people have as well. And I can definitely tell you now, if I had better stats on this than this, I will be using this piece right here. But like I said, if you're able to get that Tachyon exotic piece I've shown you earlier, aim for that, because that proficient buff with the Tachyon perk, man, it is overpowered. And even though this is more of like a damage dealing build, having a little bit more stats effect damage does not hurt. So aim for that. If you're not able to get that, aim for something like this, proficient buff with precision, proficiency, and valor. If you're able to get something like that, you can get a piece like this or a targeted buff piece like this by running villain sector missions, okay? Or vault missions by opening loot boxes. There is a chance you'll get a legendary version of these pieces down the road. You just need to farm for it by running a lot of different missions. The vault missions give you better odds of getting it. However, you know, it's hard to come by. I honestly came across this by running, I think it was one of the Wakanda missions, and I didn't destroy the Vibranium, but I did open a loot box there. I was able to get it from there. So it's just random of getting like range pieces with a proficient buff or a targeted buff. Yes, with the targeted buff, it is good. It does activate your damage buff as well. But like I said, the proficient buff activates your damage buff more often because you're using a range power attack, which is Bag of Tricks and Split Shot Arrow. And you also want to make sure the range attacks that you're dealing is with cluster arrows, okay? And one other thing I will mention is you also want to make sure the status effect is completely opposite of your melee status effect. So quick breakdown on what status effects I'm talking about. For example, with your range, you want to come with the cold status effect if you really want. That can be cryo, shock, sonic, or gamma. That will be considered a cold status effect. And then your melee piece can have like a warm status effect like vibranium, plasma, PIM, and cosmic. Combining a warm and cold status effect creates something we call as battery effect damage. By doing battery effect status effect damage, you'll deal a lot more damage than usual by combining those two things. So that's where you get this. And going back to the Tachyon piece, I can definitely tell you, if you don't want to wait for that Tachyon event to come back, you can go into, let's see here, Beating the Odds every week on Thursday around 12 o'clock p.m. Eastern. The mission resets where there is a chance you can get a legendary version of that screenshot I've shown you of that Tachyon exotic with proficient buff, or a legendary version. So you can run that, or you can run, let's see here, just the random Tachyon Rift missions. You have a chance of getting it here. Well, honestly, your odds of getting a Tachyon exotic are much better by running Beating the Odds and also waiting for that Tachyon event to come back. And if you're not able to do that, like get the Tachyon damage buff piece, just go for the other piece I've shown you, the proficient buff or the targeted buff legendary version with cluster arrows as one of the perks. And you can get that from any mission, but like I said, villain sector missions and opening legendary loot boxes give you a better chance of getting it. And also running elite vaults, opening loot boxes there also gives you a better chance of getting it. Okay, so explaining the gear has been dragging along. I hope I'm not talking too much, but like you guys know, I always want to provide that information to you just so you guys have all the information that you need to create an overpowered build like I have. We're now going to go into the final piece of gear, and that's the melee piece. So the melee piece I have right here is called a Discordant Blade. So this is very useful when you're running the Claw Raid, because when you're dealing vibranium damage, it basically sends like a sonic conduit buff to all heroes. This is more active when you're running the Claw Raid most of the time. So the reason I like this is, yes, the stats are pretty good. It comes with resilience, valor, and might. If I wish for something that's replacing might with precision, that would have helped me a lot more, and that would probably took my range rating to close to 3,000. So I'll definitely aim for something like that. And like with this piece, if you're unable to get this, I highly recommend getting the Sonic version of this. So if you're able to beat the Claw Raid, go and get the Sonic version of this piece and make sure it has a split shot arrow perk, okay, with valor, precision, and resilience, because like I said, a little bit of defense does help. I would definitely get that, and then I'll probably switch my range piece to a warm status effect, because Sonic is a cold status effect. So I'll go with like a cosmic, you know, proficient buff piece like I showed you in that range tachyon gear piece screenshot. Okay, so going back to this, so if you're unable to beat the Claw Raid, you can aim for this piece right here. I got this piece by, again, opening loot boxes, running villain sector missions where enemies might drop a legendary piece. This has incredible stats. It deals shock damage, however, you might come across other status effects, but the stats on this is what's the most important part, because it comes with precision, proficiency, and valor. You can also get some sort of resolve. And you can see right here, if I do equip it, look where my rating is at right now. Crazy, right? I will have definitely started using this instead of the vibranium piece, but the reason I'm using the vibranium piece is because my range piece has a cold status effect. And yeah, so with that piece, you can get it from any villain sector mission by opening loot boxes across the war table. There's all these missions right here. When you're using a certain character, the more often you use this character, you have a better chance of getting the gear you want. So that is the breakdown of the gear I use. Okay. And if there is any questions you guys do have, let me know in the comments below and I'll definitely answer them. So now let's get ready and go into skills and show you the skill trees for Hawkeye. Okay, so now we are in the skills part of the video. So in this part of the video, I'm going to quickly break down the primary, specialty, mastery, and champion system. So let's get it started. So with the primary part, it's basically based off of heavy attacks. So when I'm running missions and I'm attacking enemies, I'm actually using the split shot arrow ability, bag of tricks, and splintering fire. And usually with some easier content, if I'm fooling around, I'll use like a melee attack called, where is it, right here? I just had it. There we go, suspension arrow. Because with suspension arrow, even though yes, it is a melee attack, it's pretty cool to see these enemies float in the air, and then I go into doing my range combos. Because by using suspension arrow, it actually brings all the enemies kind of together, and you have a better chance of attacking the enemies all within that one group. But again, this is something I just fool around with, but most of the time I'm using splintering fire to first activate my damage buff, and then I'll go into like bag of tricks and the split shot arrow abilities. And with these power attacks, as you guys can see, this relates to either getting your targeted buff activated, which gives you a damage buff, but if you're using the proficient buff perk with this kind of piece, you'll get your damage buff more frequently. So that's why, like I said, I recommended that tachyon exotic piece for you guys to aim for instead of just the targeted buff. But if you can't get that, targeted buff works well as also. So going back to skills, we went over that. If you're level 50, you will be able to unlock all of this, plus your specialty and mastery. So let's go ahead into specialty now. I'm just going to go through this pretty quickly. If you guys, again, do have any questions, let me know in the comments below. So support heroic ability is recovery arrow. So with recovery arrow, I go with critical care. Critical care, you can read the description right there. 20% increased critical attack chance and 20% greater weak point and critical attack damage. Really good to also give you that increased damage boost when you're dealing damage. So when I'm demonstrating on how I use my abilities, you will see when I use the recovery arrow ability and how to clip the animations as well. Next, I have heroic recharge. Enemies defeated within that recovery arrow circle has a 30% chance to drop a heroic orb. The heroic orb will help you build up your heroic abilities, like your assault heroic, your ultimate, and your support. Now we're going into assault. This is the best ability to use when it comes to this build, because this is kind of like the definition of my overpowered Hawkeye build. So Nightstorm arrow, I actually go with Fire Devil, because Fire Devil deals plasma damage, and combined with your other status effects, with your range piece, like the piece I've shown you, you can deal a lot more status effects, which will create a battery effect in dealing more damage. So Fire Devil, honestly, is probably one of the, assault heroic abilities compared to Hailstorm or Ion Surge that does more damage. I've tested these other ones, and depending on the gear you have or the mission you're running, Fire Devil is definitely convenient. I know with the Claw Raid, a lot of people tend to use Hailstorm or Ion Surge, and that's because of this new thing we call the Leak Perk. And the Leak Perk I'll probably demonstrate in a future video, but that's like a minor artifact you can get that has some sort of like a cryo leak or a shock leak, which does extra damage, status effect damage with your other abilities. So Fire Devil is definitely something I recommend. And then also Fatal Domain will increase the zone by 50%. So by using this, you'll actually create a bigger zone. So if there's a lot of enemies, this will wipe out a lot of enemies quickly, especially when you have a damage buff active. A lot of people said, why don't you increase, the strike point? Well, I rather have a bigger zone, because sometimes when you're placing the Nightstorm arrow, you might not be able to place it on the enemies. Sometimes the enemies won't be even close to it. So that's why I prefer having a bigger zone. So that's an assault heroic ability, and you guys can also see by having another skill point in here, you get a second charge, and then going back to your heroic piece gear, you're able to get a third charge. So you basically have 3 charges of Nightstorm arrow, and using the Fire Devil, that does, with the damage buff, it does create a lot of critical attack damage. Going to the ultimate heroic ability, Hunter's Arrow, we're going with Twin Talons. So this actually creates shock damage, so it's another status effect, which also helps. So you have multiple status effects. So if we go back to our gear, we currently have Vibranium and Shock, and then we're creating Plasma, and then we're also having more shock damage, which is very useful. So this increases the overall damage dealt attack to enemies. Again, something I would also activate when I have a damage buff. And then we have Bird in the Hand. Enemy defeated by Hunter's Arrow have a 25% chance to drop a heroic orb. So any enemies defeated by your Hunter Arrow, they can drop a heroic orb, which will help recharge your heroic abilities, which are these 3 categories right here. Okay, so that's specialty. Let's go ahead to mastery. With mastery, you guys just can pause the video and just have a look to see what I've put my attributes in. And like I said, if there's explanations that you want me to provide to you, let me know in the comments below with your questions. Okay, so now we're off to the champion system. So you can see here, since Hawkeye is one of my main characters, I try to max out the entire champion system, but I'll let you guys know what to start off with, so you don't need to like invest in anything else. So the first thing I recommend to invest in is Perk Chance Boost. This kind of increases your chance of activating your damage buff a lot more frequently than others. So by you upgrading all of this, you have a chance to activate your damage buff if one of your pieces, like your range piece for example, carries a damage buff perk. Another piece, another part I would go into is heroic charge rate. Heroic charge rate increases the charge rate of all heroics by 2.5%. This is also good to have because it will help you recharge your heroic abilities for you to use Nightstorm arrow, recovery arrow, and hunter's arrow more frequently. So you definitely want to increase that next. Defense never hurts. It's good to increase your defense, even though it says 1%. I know it's very minimum, but it's good to increase your defense. Then I would go into increasing your critical attack chance by 1%. This contributes to your range and heroic rating, and also your critical damage. That also contributes to range and heroic rating. So those are a couple things. But like I said, if Hawkeye is your main, you're probably eventually going to max out your entire champion system, which is cool to do. But keep in mind, if you're ever maxing out your champion system, I will leave a link in the description to my champion XP farming video. Make sure you farm for champion XP whenever we have the 4-time XP event. Or if you have a consumable, you can use that and follow the instructions in the video in the description I will be putting in. Okay. And yeah, then you can do your range rating and then heroic damage. So that's the breakdown of the champion system. We went through the mastery, we went through the specialty, and primary I described to you guys what heavy attacks I use. So now it's the fun part. I'm actually going to show you a quick demonstration on how I use my abilities in the harm room, and also show you something I call clipping animations when you're using Hawkeye, and how to make this build, really effective when you're running missions with your teammates or randoms. So let's go. All right, everyone, we're in the harm room right now. I'm going to show you a quick demonstration. This is going to be a very quick demonstration because you guys already seen the clips in the beginning of the video on how I use my attacks. But in this part of the video, I'm going to show you a quick demonstration on how to use Hawkeye's attacks efficiently and in which order to use them in. So let's go ahead to the terminal right here. So we're gonna go, let's just go with Synthoids real quickly. Again, these abilities are effective against any type of enemy. So I'm just using the Synthoids as like an example. Obviously we want to put it on brutal difficulty. We're gonna go ahead and start the harm room. Enemies are gonna spawn. So what I like to do first is I go into Splinter Arrow, try and get that damage buff applied. Obviously I'm using the targeted buff, so you can't really see the damage buff applied right away. Now I have the damage buff applied. I go into Recovery Arrow, pop my artifact, ultimate heroic ability, which is Hunter Arrow. Then I go into Nightstorm. And you saw right there, that was about 3 charges. And after that, I just start going into my Split Shot Arrow and keep building up my heroic charge. And you can see the stats effects being applied on these enemies. So like I said, I have the Vibranium piece right now. So you're going to see Vibranium, and then you see the shock coming from my range piece. Another damage boost right here. Apply Nightstorm Arrow. So let's purposely die real quick, because I want to quickly explain to you what clipping means. So me coming from playing DC Universe online, I've learned a lot about the terminology called clipping. Clipping is when you clip animations together to perform them faster. So in Marvel's Avengers, I would have never thought there would have been an ability to clip animations. But I'm gonna go ahead, start the harm room. So usually so I'll go into Splinter Fire first. So I got the damage buff. So if I don't clip anything, this is how slow the animations look. So here's recovery arrow. I pop the artifact by standing like this, and look how long it takes me to use Hunter's arrow. Okay, and then I go into Nightstorm. See how slow that was? So now let's just purposely just die. So let these synthoids just, you know, attack me. There we go. Now I'll show you a quick way of clipping your animations, and which is more efficient when you're fighting multiple enemies and bosses, and you can destroy an enemy quickly like this, like you've seen in the clips in the beginning. So splinter fire, let's get that damage buff going. And I died. That is just great. Thank goodness this is just a demonstration. Obviously I don't die like this when I'm running missions. So we'll start from here. And this is why I recommend the proficient buff, because look at this. It takes me forever to get that damage buff going with targeted buff at times. So there we got the damage buff. So what we're going to do is now we're going to jump in the air, hit recovery arrow, use our ultimate heroic ability, and then go into Nightstorm. So that's how I end up using my heroic abilities. I'll do it one more time so you guys can see it in full motion. All right, come on. There we go. And with this build too, you can clear a 5-level harm room, or yeah, 5-level harm room with maximum combat power enemies with this build as well. So start the harm room. Here is my animations all put together and in what order. So we're going to, let's get some distance here. Splintering fire. Got the damage buff, artifact, recovery arrow, hunter's arrow, still in the air, Nightstorm arrow. And that's how we do it. Just like that. I honestly would have probably went into splintering fire, get the damage buff, then into recovery arrow, then use my damage buff, just so I can have like a little bit more time. And then Nightstorm. Okay, so hopefully that was a great explanation of this, you know, demonstration part of the video. And now let's go ahead and reset the harm room and end off the video. Okay, so that pretty much breaks down my overpowered Hawkeye build. Like I said, if you do have any questions, let me know in the comments below. I am going to be putting timestamps in the description and also in the comments, so you guys can skip to any part of the video. And with this build video, like I said, it is overpowered. You'll be able to solo the Super Adaptoid. You'll be able to beat Claw pretty quickly when you're teamed up with some good teammates in the Claw raid, and also future endgame content missions. So you've seen the clips, you've seen the skills, you've seen the gear, you've seen the demonstration. I don't know what else there is to show you, but if you do have any questions, let me know in the comments below. And I also want to say I appreciate the continued support. I know a lot of people appreciate these long-winded, you know, build videos from myself, because I try to help you and I try to explain to you everything about creating the best build in this game. But yeah, like I said, if you have any questions, let me know, okay? You guys take care. Show your support by clicking that like button and subscribing for more future content. Until then, I'm out. Peace.